Good morning and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today we are here with the Segway ZT3 Pro at Phoenix's South Mountain Preserve. And today we're going to be doing an endurance hill climb test. We're going to see if this scooter has what it takes to make it to all three lookout points here on South Mountain. Now, if all goes well, we should be getting anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 feet in elevation gain over the course of approximately 17.5 miles. Now, for today's ride, we are going to be cruising around in sport mode. I do have the maximum speed capped at 20 miles an hour, which is the same speed that we cap all of our commuter scooters coming up this mountain. So this ZT3 Pro does have a 650 nominal watt motor, which is capable of cranking out upwards of 1,600 watts of peak power, which should be more than sufficient to get us to the top. The question is, are we going to have enough juice in the tank with a 12.75 amp hour battery, which has about 596 watt hours of capacity? Now, for this ride today, we are using Garmin GPS. It's what I use to track all of my rides. It'll give us the most consistent readout, and then at the very end we'll bring it all together, see how we did stat-wise. On our way down the mountain today, we will be using regenerative braking to give us the highest probability of making it back down with some juice left in the tank. We'll probably set it to either weak or strong. We'll see how we're doing battery-wise. Now, in terms of outside temperature, it is approximately 55 degrees Fahrenheit right now, which is very cool for the Phoenix area, but we are coming into our cooler season. Now, for this ride today, I do weigh in at approximately 204 pounds with gear. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. I know Segway does a lot of their testing of their scooters with 165-pound riders on flat ground, you know, so in terms of hill climbability, they do say this scooter will climb upwards of 25% grades. The steepest grade that we're going to go over today is going to be just over 10%. We will be doing our extreme hill climb test at a future date, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be over 23% grade, which, to be honest with you, is pushing the limits a little bit with this scooter, given that you know, it's rated for 25% grades with a 165-pound rider, but we'll definitely test it out. For that, we'll have all of our speed settings set to maximum. Right now, we're pulling about 1,100 watts of power, so it's definitely up there. Looking at our battery as we approach approximately 3 miles, we've got about 77% remaining in the tank, so we're definitely eating through that battery right now. One of the other reasons why I set the maximum speed to 20, usually something below the top speed of the scooter, is I don't want to be running these things at max capacity for 9.5 miles up a mountain. You know, the last thing I want to do is run into some overheating situation. You know, just like you wouldn't, you know, drive a car full speed up a steep grade up the Rocky Mountains or something. But so far, this scooter's pulling through these inclines. No issues at all whatsoever. We're maintaining about 18 miles an hour. You know, we are tracking our speed right now using the app as well as GPS, and based on previous testing, the app gives very reliable and accurate readouts for speed. In terms of tire pressure, I do have these tires inflated to 47 PSI today, which is just below the 48 that they recommend. Now, if you didn't catch it, I did post a range test with this scooter, and we got some pretty surprising results, especially for the commuter scooter segment, which I benchmarked it against, primarily because of the battery size of this scooter. And anyways, I'll include a link above as well as in the description below if you want to check that out, in addition to my first impressions ride as well as unboxing, where we go over all the features of the scooter as well as all the menu options in the app. All right, now we're coming into one of our steeper stretches here. Now, right now we are in the shadow of South Mountain. Up at the top, we've got the antennas, which we hope to make it up to today. But this here is going to be a long, grueling hill climb stretch right here. And then we'll get a little bit of relief on the other side with a little bit of downhill action, and then it's right back up to the hill climb. So on GPS, we officially crossed the 4-mile mark, and as of right now, we've got 64% battery remaining. So How is this gonna do making it all the way to the top? I'm not sure, but so far it's not looking good. In terms of nominal voltage, we're at about 47.6 right now. It's 46.5, that's approximately the halfway point. Good news is we've got a nice downhill stretch on this mountain, which we can leverage to crank some juice back in the battery with regenerative braking, but you know, that's not going to be a whole lot of power going back into the scooter. You know, maybe 5 to 7%. You know, one thing to call out with this ZT3 Pro is it is a heavier scooter at 66 pounds. It's got a bigger motor. It's going to have higher current draw than some of the other commuters. We tested the ninebot Max G2 up here. That made it up to all 3 lookout points. We've tested the Apollo Go. That made it to 2 out of the 3 lookout points. KQI 300X made it to all 3 with flying colors. And one other scooter that we haven't tested yet, which we will be in the very near future, is the InMotion Climber. Got a little downhill stretch here. We'll let gravity do its job. We came out here a little bit earlier today because forecast said it's supposed to rain. You know, but looks like it's coming a little bit later than planned, so that's always good. It's, you know, rain's not an issue. My biggest concern is lightning that comes with some of these storms, you know. Hanging out on top of a mountain next to a bunch of antennas, no thank you. All right, back to the uphill stretch. Up at the top of this mountain up here, we've got our first lookout point. Right now, I'd be happy if we can make it to 2 out of the 3. If we do that, that'll put this in the Apollo Go category. But so far, I mean, it's climbing up these hills without a problem. You know, it's definitely got a lot of torque. Right here is around where some of these scooters slow down quite a bit. We're still 16 miles an hour. So in terms of hill climbability, it is doing really well. It's just a matter of how long this battery is going to last. All right, we are coming up on our first lookout point. About 50% battery remaining in the tank. We'll take a little break up here, take in the views. I'll enable some regenerative braking so we can take advantage of that on some of the down stretches here. But here we are, no problem at all. So far, solid performance out of this ZT3 Pro. So we're at Dobbins Lookout, 2,330 feet, 710 meters. Beautiful views this morning. You got the Phoenix Metro out there. We got Tempe over there, which we did our night ride in. Nice and quiet. And of course, there's our Segway ZT3 Pro doing its thing. All right, take a little break and we'll head back up. All right, so we are on our way to our next lookout point, which is going to be Buena Vista Lookout. And then after that, if we have enough juice in the tank, we'll head on up to Gila Valley Lookout. I did set our regenerative brake to standard. There's weak and standard. We set it to standard to maximize recovery. Let's see how that works on this decline here. Works very well. So we'll definitely be putting that to work on our way down the mountain today. All right, we've got a bit of a steep hill climb here. Cruising around 18 miles an hour right now. Says we're pulling about 1,100 watts of power. I think the only time we'll get to 1,600 watts of power is probably going to be around when we have boost mode enabled, but we're not using that today. Definitely need as much battery as possible. Somebody went to the guardrail here. They still haven't fixed that. That's part of the reason why I come up here on Sunday morning. Sunday, they call it Silent Sunday, so they actually close the roads to automobile traffic, which is makes things a lot safer for, you know, folks coming out here, you know, on bikes and hiking and all that fun stuff. Because on regular days, people are always swinging around the curves here. You know, in terms of hill climbability, you know, you can definitely feel the torque in this scooter, even on the sections that some of our other commuters would struggle a little bit on, slow down to, you know, 4 or 5 miles an hour. This thing is just powering through. So I'll be excited to see how this does on our extreme hill climb test. In terms of comfort with this scooter, with the full suspension going over some of the cracks in the road here, it's actually very comfortable. You know, especially considering it's a straight coil suspension. It's got the dual coil springs up front as well as the bigger coil spring in the rear. So far, it's a very comfortable ride. Is it going to be as comfortable as something that has hydraulic dampening? No, it's not. But for what we're going over right now, more than happy with this. All right, so this is our second lookout point. Buena Vista Lookout. Another perspective on the city here. If you hear that weird like vibration in the back, that's actually, I don't know if you can see it on screen, that's actually these expansion port covers. They do vibrate quite a bit. That's the ZT3 Pro here at Buena Vista Lookout. That's the park mode enabling, which is really annoying on this scooter. Anyways, beautiful views. Nice and quiet. All right, so I am contemplating whether or not I actually want to head out to the third lookout point with this scooter. Power-wise, it's obviously more than capable, but in terms of the battery, I don't know that we're going to make it. It says we've got 34% battery remaining. I did set regenerative braking to weak because strong was just a little much. You know, very strong. So if you're going to be going down super steep grades, yeah, strong is great. But I'd like to take advantage of gravity and the downside here so that we can cover some distance, you know, with minimal power. But anyways, I don't know that we're gonna make it to that third lookout point. It's about 2.5 miles from here. And it's saying we've got 6 miles of range remaining. And we're at about 7.85 miles right now, so we're gonna cut it close, and I can't push this scooter for 9 miles today, that's for sure. You know what? We'll head this way. We'll go up a little bit. You know, I do not want to get stranded out here. There's no cars coming up and down here, so there's no hitching any rides. So, you know, this scooter does have, you know, a smaller battery, especially given the size. But, you know, it's a 48-volt system, 12.75 amp hours. You know, it's close to 600 watt hours of capacity, which is similar to some of our other scooters. But then again, you know, battery consumption is quite a bit higher on this scooter because it is pulling more watts, it's lifting more weight. So this is a particularly steep section where a lot of the scooters we ride struggle. Especially when you get down to battery levels this low, but so far it's pulling through. We made it through that. We'll definitely take advantage of some regen here on the downside. It says we're at 29% battery. It's a tough call right now. Nominal voltage, it says we're about 50%, but I know this scooter cuts things off a little bit early. Protect the battery, and it definitely reduces output to stretch out the range as much as possible. Definitely risky move trying to make it up here right now. 26% battery remaining. You know, or it would be one thing, you know, if it was purely downhill from here, but there are downhill and uphill stretches that we have to cross. We're definitely taking a big gamble right now. Let's see. Nope, we're gonna call it. We're gonna call it right here, because we're not gonna have enough to make it back. So anyway, here we are. Those are those antennas, if you can see them. There's our ZT3 Pro. And there's our last lookout point up there. We're so close. It's a half mile. It's a half mile, but our voltage is dropping quickly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get us turned around so that we don't have to do any kind of crazy walking down this mountain. You know what? I'm gonna go up to this curve here. So we got close. We're within a half mile, but this is, you know, right here is the steepest section. We're still trucking along at 8-9 miles an hour, but this is gonna be our turnaround point. So almost made it to all 3 lookout points. On the way down here, we'll take advantage of our regenerative braking. But you know, today I can't risk it. So we did make it up a little bit further than the Apollo Go. Didn't make it up as high as some of our other commuter scooters. But anyways, we'll see if we can make it back to the car today. We got regen set to weak. I'm not gonna set it to strong because that basically will take us to a standstill coming down this mountain. I'm gonna keep things a little bit slower on the inclines here so that we can maximize our range here. I see watts. You know, when you apply power, the watts are negative. When you take your thumb off the throttle, it goes into positive numbers. You know, usually I thought that was supposed to be the opposite. Negative watts is watts going into the battery. So I don't know if it's backwards on this scooter or what, but anyways, we're on the downsides here. We're definitely charging up the battery. We'll see by how much. We were so close. All right, we got a little bit of a hill climb here until we get over this ridge. Then we'll have a nice little downhill stretch. And it'll be mostly downhill from there. All right, coming over the ridge. There we go. Definitely taking advantage of regen right now, since we got 520 or so watts going back into the battery. We'll see how this battery percentage changes as we work our way down the mountain. We just crossed the 10-mile mark. We've got 22% battery remaining, says 4.1 miles of range, but that's kind of based on all that hill climbing we did, so we should be able to stretch it out. So in terms of hill climbability, you know, this is absolutely able to scale inclines significantly steeper than the ninebot Max G2. There were sections where on that scooter you know, we were going 3 miles an hour. This one here was trucking along in some of those areas at 14, 15 miles an hour. So definitely improved hill climbability. We'll test it out on our extreme hill climb test. Probably next week, maybe next weekend, we'll see. Testing all kinds of scooters and bikes right now, so we'll see how we can fit that into the schedule. But that nice thing about that is it's a pretty quick test. I will say that this scooter definitely has a very smooth ride. Handles a lot of these cracks in the road with ease. Very comfortable, you know, confidence inspiring, really good handling on it. Our battery bar is now orange, says we got 20% battery remaining. This, unfortunately, this section here is flat with some incline, so this is definitely a battery drainer, that's for sure. You know, as we get to 20% or below, you definitely feel the power output on the scooter drop. You can definitely feel that right now. That's Segway doing whatever it can to help stretch out the distance, which I can appreciate at this moment. Just got to get through this and we're back down the mountain. 15% battery remaining. We're approaching 12 miles into this ride right now. So I'm just gonna cruise, take advantage of this regen. I feel like this weak regen, I think it could be a little weaker. You know, it is a little strong for being labeled as weak. Oh, I never saw that road there. It's curious where that takes you. We are back in the shadow of this mountain. You can hear that suspension in the back clunk a little bit. That's that recoil. Similar behavior we see on the ninebot Max G2. Right now, even though I do have the throttle pushed in a little bit, we are still charging up the battery with the regen. Still holding strong at 15% battery. Got a little bit of a hill climb here, and then we'll go back down. I'm gonna just stop here for a moment because this is a place where we've got really good views. I don't know if you can see it there, but got a big valley. Houses out there. There's our ZT3 Pro. And yeah, nice little saguaro cactus there. That's basically our trees here in this part of Arizona. All right, back to it. The scooter always goes into park mode, which is annoying. Hopefully they make an update that allows you to configure that somehow. I've had multiple cases where park mode all of a sudden enables and I'm trying to cross an intersection and I forget that it's enabled. Still have 15% battery remaining. I've got throttle still partially in. You know, riding around on the ZT3 Pro really makes me want to test out Segway's GT series, like the GT1 and GT2. Because one thing that I immediately associate with this scooter is quality. You know, it's built really well, it's got a really awesome design, it's a comfortable ride, it's very stable at speed, it's got all the things that you'd really want in a scooter, except the range. You know, I wish it did have a slightly larger battery for people who like to go out on, you know, little adventures or long rides around town. You know, for me, it's more than sufficient for, I would say, 90% of my riding use cases. You know, I like to cruise around the neighborhood and explore local trails and things like that. So, you know, I'm not going, you know, 30, 40 miles of rides. We are still at 15% battery remaining. Such a beautiful morning, nice and cool. I really look forward to this riding season. You know, it's funny is there's, a lot of e-bike and scooter companies, they've got the end of season sales going on right now, and here in Arizona, our season's just getting started, so we've got lots and lots of rides to do on all kinds of devices, over the next 5 or 6 months. And we are still holding strong at 15% battery remaining. So this should be just enough to get us back to our starting point. All right, I'll take a little pit stop, give you a view of what we just climbed. There it is. South Mountain, those are the antennas. We were within a half mile of our last lookout point. There's that ridiculous park mode. Segway, you gotta fix that, it's annoying. Nobody wants that. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful out here. I love it every time, it never gets old. There's our ZT3 Pro, looking fantastic. It's wide open desert. All right, back to it. Now, if you're interested in picking up one of these ZT3 Pros, I will include some links in the description below. If you use those links to purchase this scooter, it absolutely helps support this channel, keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. So 100% of the funds generated by this channel go straight back into purchasing additional devices to review, as well as additional equipment to help make some of these videos even better. All right, so we have officially crossed the 16-mile mark. We're still at 15% battery remaining. So that regen definitely did a good job at keeping some charge in our battery, which is going to allow us to get back. Looking back on it, it says we've got 2.8 miles. Could we have made it to the top? It's possible. It was mostly a hill climb from our turnaround point. It may have drained the battery, to the point where, we would be walking right now, but there is a possibility it could have made it. But, they closed these roads, and so I have no way of getting a ride back down the mountain, and I don't want to get stranded up there. So it's possible it could have made it. But anyways, overall, still impressed with this scooter. It made it within half a mile of the top, which made for an excellent hill climb. All right, folks, so there you have it. That was our hill climb with the Segway ZT3 Pro up Phoenix's South Mountain. On today's ride, we went 16.5 miles. We had an average moving speed of 16.8 miles an hour, max speed of 24.3 miles an hour, and we had an elevation gain of 1,854 feet. So we were just shy of the top of the mountain. It would have added an additional mile to this ride. And of course, we were cruising around for about an hour and 9 minutes. So let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns about this scooter. Definitely happy with the performance today. I think, if I didn't have any time constraints today, I could have made it to the top. So we might try it again. But anyways, we'll be doing our extreme hill climb test next weekend. So definitely stay tuned for that. But as always, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.